Due to the Zionist narrative, and put it quite ironically, people tend to forget that in the 40s and 50s, most of the people of Tel Aviv spoke Yiddish, not Hebrew. For all practical matters, people communicated in languages other than Hebrew. However, in school and the children's, so-called the children's culture, was a kind of strong Hebraic one. So I grew up in, if you like, bilingual environment in which the house had to do with Yiddish, while the school and you know, my kids' environment was purely Hebraic. But it was not only with the case of Yiddish, it was also the case of Polish, the case of German, the case of Hungarian. I remember, and I can give you one typical example. The first time I ever learned that there is a language called German is that when I was 3 years old or 4 years old, my mom and I went to a store around the corner of Herr Kleinmann. I'm talking about Israel, man, this is not German. Herr Kleinmann was a Polish Jew, but everyone used to address him Herr Kleinmann because the high language in those days, even in Palestine, was regarded German. So my mother thought she was speaking German while she spoke to him Galician Yiddish. And I asked my mother, what are you talking about? What is this kind of language that you use? She said, this is Deutsch. Okay, now I learned that there is a language that's called Deutsch, and I learned it in Palestine of the 40s. You know, visiting the shop of Herr Kleinmann. I have to tell you how complicated it was, because for all those Eastern European Jews who came to Palestine, who were not sworn Zionists, and both my father and mother were was quite outstanding in those days in Israel, were not kind of farbrente, you know, extreme political-minded people. They were kind of, you know, little bourgeois, you know, things like that. And they loved Hebrew culture, and they loved Yiddish culture. My mother, who grew up, you know, in the shtetl, was sent to a Tarbut school in the shtetl. Tarbut school was a Hebrew school, so when she came to Palestine, she mastered Hebrew. She could recite Bialik in Hebrew. That was one thing. It was nice. And she even taught us, you know, Bialik's poems when we studied them at school. At the same time, she could sing, you know, Yiddish lullabies. She could read Yiddish literature. She could enjoy a good, nice talk, you know, in Yiddish. There was no contradiction. So I grew up in that environment that it was not kind of enmity, rather kind of complementary. So the conflict was between, as I said, the home culture and the street culture.